In this video, we'll talk about what we call parent functions. And generally speaking, with parent functions, you need to know what the shape of a graph looks like because the shape of a graph can give you important information about the graph, such as your intercepts or even your domain and range. So all we're going to do is commit these basic graphs up here to memory. Because when we look at them, when we see these, we need to know what parent function we're dealing with. And all I'm going to do is look at these three examples, and we're going to talk about them. I want to identify the parent function for the graphs below. When we look at this first one, it looks a lot like this graph right here. As a matter of fact, we transformed this graph up here to get here. And so this right here, the parent for this particular graph, is going to be our square root function. And on the square root, we know the square root's special because it has an x-intercept where it touches the x-axis at, and the domain of the graph goes on forever. The range of the graph, which is the y values, the lowest y value is starting here, and that y value is 0, and it runs all the way to, well, this graph will go on forever, so it runs all the way to infinity. So when you look at this, you need to be able to identify those type of things from this graph. The next graph is going to be our, well, this is basically the identity function. And this is the identity function transformed. But this is our identity. And the identity function, when you transform the identity function, what you get is a line, or what we call the linear function. So this is technically the identity, or also known as the linear function. And again, we can find, here's the y-intercept, here is the x-intercept. We can get the domain from the graph, and we can get the range from the graph. Every identity function is going to have an x, a y, and a domain and range. The last function we're looking at is going to be our quadratic function. And again, we can identify that the shape of the general graph. The shape of the general graph looks like this. So this is going to be our quadratic function. And from the quadratic, we see that quadratics are special because they have the U shape, which produces, this is a vertex. All quadratics have a vertex, and we'll go into more depth about all of these particular graphs later on in the course. But right now, you just need to know general what they look like to identify.